Hello, Shawn Shambo.
Hi. How
Hi.
are
So I'd like to introduce you, Shawn Shambo from Assisted Living Locators. And I have to give you a big thank you because I was recently with a family, and as you know, and got there to talk about selling their home, and they told me that they have to get the seller to an assisted living facility, and they didn't know where to begin. And I immediately called you while I was at the house, and thank you so much for taking care of them.
Absolutely. And that's pretty much what I do for a living.
Right.
So with Assisted Living Locators, I essentially am that person that you would call, and almost a little bit of what you do, Heidi. It's kind of like I find them the best living situation, whether I'm looking for memory care, long-term care facility, nursing home, or assisted living, independent living even. So essentially that is a very complicated process. What I'll usually do is, like, when you called me, I would go and try to figure out what kind of money they have and what their special needs are and all of that. I'll usually even try to help them find money. There's programs out there, and if they're appropriate for a program, I'll fit them in that program that will help them pay for assisted living. Then I know all of these communities from the greater Portland area, realistically, right into certain areas of Massachusetts. I know them like the back of my hand. So essentially, once I know what your needs are, in a heartbeat, I know what places are appropriate. And so,
Okay.
and I'll tour people and help them with the move-in, and all of that I do is completely free service.
Oh, that's great. And actually, the day after we moved her in, or that you moved her into the assisted living facility, it was her birthday. And so we went and with the family, we sang happy birthday outside of her window. We were down at the sidewalk and she was looking out the window and we sang to her. It was really sweet.
It's the new normal right now. It really is. With COVID, it's like we're doing all these things, trying to keep everyone safe. And you ought to, in some communities, they do bingo where everybody sits outside their door,
Oh,
and down the end of the hall, the person will be calling the numbers, and all these people are just like kind of social distancing in their doorways down the hall playing. It's the new normal, and it's
great.
all due to COVID. I mean,
Well, speaking of COVID, so I have a few questions. Why is it that that assisted living facilities or memory care, or whatever they, all these different ones are having, why are they such a hot spot for COVID?
yeah, so there's different communities. There's independent communities where essentially there's no physical help. It's just like 3 meals a day, and it's more just kind of social living in a community. And then you have assisted living where you actually have aides that are helping you on a regular basis. Essentially, you have nursing facilities where you are more ill. And you need way more care, where you actually need nursing assistance. And the reason why it comes across as a hotbed with assisted living, but even more so in a long-term care facility, is more to do with memory issues. So let's just say like a assisted living community, probably 50% will have some amount of dementia, but it's usually a low level. It's a very early stage dementia. And that brings its own problems. But once you get into a nursing home, a long-term care facility, now you're looking at more like moderate to end stage Alzheimer's and dementia.
Okay.
So you can just imagine, you have someone with mid to late stage and you're trying to get them to wear a mask. It isn't going to happen. You're trying to get them not to hug or touch people or hold people or wash their hands. It's the dementia that limits their ability to not spread COVID.
Are they
And
just simply forgetting or just not
it
wanting
is.
to follow the
A lot of it will be
protocol?
just short-term memory. I mean, they
Okay.
for the most part, if you have someone mid-stage to late-stage dementia, there's no short-term memory. So if I tell you, you got to wash your hands right after you eat, or don't hug me, or don't shake my hand, I mean, probably within the next minute or so, it's totally forgotten.
Okay.
So essentially what happens is it spreads quickly throughout a long-term care facility, and to a lesser degree to like an assisted living facility. But in a long-term care facility, it spreads really quick. And then they're frail, they're very ill. Some are even bedridden. And that's the reason why we see so many deaths. It spreads really fast in a long-term care facility because of the inability for them to follow guidelines.
What are these facilities doing to stop it?
They're utilizing best practices, and best practices are changing every week. In the very beginning, it really was difficult to figure out, but as time went on, they would come up with significant protocols. Let's just say they stopped letting people eat in communal dining. So they would deliver your meals to you. No one was allowed to come into the building. Even your mailman would deliver at the door, and then the staff would take it in. Family members, if they had to bring stuff to their family, medicines and stuff, they couldn't come in. They'd have to drop it off at the door. Just like you. I mean, when you were there to see the 95-year-old lady, you weren't able to come in. You could see her throughout the window. Testing has increased, but testing in general for even the long-term care type clients next to impossible because how unpleasant it is and because they're confused. So one group started, one community started wearing T-shirts that would say like don't shake hands, or another T-shirt would say wash your hands, another T-shirt would say stay 6 feet away, and they would wear these T-shirts so the community members that could read, it would be a significant reminder at all times. And that's just an example of best practices. But really what they're doing is they're just trying their best to keep it from coming in and certainly keeping it from going out.
Okay. When do you think it will be safe for people to be moving into facilities where I'm sure right now there's a little bit of a hold on it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Even I probably would have said late March, I would keep people out of there at that time. But as the months progressed and the weeks progressed and different communities really locked down and was using best practices and all of that, at this point in the game, even the communities that did have 6 cases, 10 cases a month ago, 6 weeks, 8 weeks ago, even those communities, especially if they had it 2 months ago, really went down into a significant lockdown and really started working on best practices. So at this point in the game, very few communities, especially in my territory in that greater Portland area down south to like Kittery and all of that, significantly has dropped to almost zero in most cases. We are still seeing issues with long-term care facilities and memory care communities, but even those are dropping significantly as the weeks go on. So I would actually, I've been telling people, it's okay now. I feel if you need to go to a assisted living or you need to move into a long-term care facility, it's now safer. In fact, I would even say it's safer than going to a grocery store.
Okay. We kept this person safe too. We didn't have people go into her home. She was in a ranch. So first floor, we did peekaboo showings through the windows.
Excellent.
And only after the buyer got under contract did we actually let him in. We sold it.
That is great. It's the new normal. I totally get it. Everything.
Yeah. Well, Shawn, thank you so much for allowing me to interview you. It was fun. And stay safe.
You got it. You too.
Okay.
Stick around, Heidi.
Bye.